Hey, so I had a little bit of time to do a video today. Um, I've had a lot of appointments booked for Mondays are always booked with appointments, and then I had enough appointments today that I didn't fill orders. I had to take today and just do appointments. But I wanted to do a video for a few of my clients who have requested information on how to dispose of um, working remnants once you're done with them. I think the first thing to take into account is the type of materials you're using in your working. There are certain types of candles that make a lot more waste than other types of candles. So I like to make my own candles or use most of the ones that I use personally, I make out of beeswax. I have a friend who lives just a couple blocks away who has beehives, and I get my beeswax from him. So my personal candles, I like to use a certain amount of beeswax in them or use 100% beeswax. And these burn with virtually no dripping. There's nothing left over. There's nothing left over to read. Some people do that, some people don't. I will read the wax if if there's an unusual wax flow or there's a really unusual symbol to the wax, I will take those into account. But overall, it really depends on the type of candle you're using, how much wax flow you're going to get. And the amount of wax flow determines how much you're going to be able to read out of the wax. So you can do the exact same working with a beeswax candle versus a candle that you picked up for 50 cents at the craft store, which is made out of paraffin, which has a super high melting point. And so when you light it and it gets hot, it's just going to go all over the place. So you're going to end up with a big pool of wax from that one, and you're going to end up with virtually no wax from the beeswax candle. So I don't put a whole ton of stock into reading the wax from candles because, like I said, you can do the exact same working with two different types of candles made from completely different types of wax, and one you're going to be able to read and one one you won't be able to. So it's up to you which you want to use. If you want to be able to have a lot of overflow and a lot of excess, you're going to want to use a cheaper quality candle. I try to stay away from those. I don't like using unnatural ingredients in my workings. I try to stay away from that. I try to either purchase or make the best quality candles I can, because I think that those little details are really important in your workings. It's not that you have to spend a lot of money. It's just that you need to look for quality ingredients. Things that are actually made from natural materials, things that are actually made with herbs in them, so they're infused with acai, so they have the energy to do what they are meant to do. So when you have your wax left over or your petition papers that you've put under your candle and the wax melts all over them, or other things that you've put around your candles for offerings, I live in Michigan, so it's winter here, and in the wintertime, I can't exactly go outside and bury offerings or, take them to the river. Some of the rivers are frozen over. Depends which river I'm going to, how large or small it is. So a lot of times I have to separate my workings out by type because I do so many. I do at least 2 a day for clients. I don't take any more appointments than that because that's a lot. So that gives me, like, you figure each service lasts, 2 to 3 days, so you're overlapping them, and you really have to space that out, or it can get to be too much work for a person. So I use jars like this, large mason jars, and I collect the leftovers from my workings, and I categorize them in different types of jars. I'll have the remnants from love workings left over in one jar. I have the remnants from prosperity workings left over in one jar. Protection workings, retribution workings, blah, 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 blah. So in the wintertime, that's how I keep mine. I'll keep mine in there. Now, let me remind you, I'm using candles that will provide a lesser amount of wax. So I don't have like a big, gobs and gobs of wax to get rid of. So I categorize them, I keep them stored, and then in the summertime, when it is nice, or in the springtime, we have springs coming up here real quick, I will take them and dispose of them where I need to, according to what type of working it is. So if, let's say all of my lost and away workings. So those are traditionally automatically taken to a river or a live body of water of some sort, which is river or lake, not a pond and not a swamp. So you would want to put those remnants into a live body of water that is going to carry it away from you. I prefer to use rivers. We have the Kalamazoo River here. So you'll put those remnants in there. The idea is the current carries it away from you. So that person or that obstacle is out of your life. Prosperity workings, I have a couple different approaches to these. It kind of depends what I'm called to do at the time. There is an aspect of Elegua who lives in the garbage can. So I know that sounds kind of funny, but for some of my prosperity works and my open roads works, because he is the Orisha of open roads, I will take them straight to the garbage can to give, and as I do that, that is an offering for that aspect of Elegua. So that sounds kind of funny, like I'm throwing the prosperity out, but that's not. I'm releasing them in honor to a certain deity. So it's not that it's trash; it then becomes an offering. Certain other prosperity works. If there is, all of the food stuff that I use for offerings gets put outside for the animals for the earth to take it back and for the animals to use. That is another way to perpetuate the blessings from your workings, that they carry on, that it's that what you have used in your workings to sustain your spirits is then being put outside, not thrown in the garbage as waste, but put outside for the animals to also sustain them. So it's just one other aspect you can build onto that. My other prosperity works, I have a designated tree that I use, and I will bury the remnants there. So you want the prosperity to stay with you. And as a spiritual worker, when I work on prosperity works for clients, I'm a vessel for their goal, and I'm a vessel for the spirits that I'm calling upon to work for their goals. So when I bury their prosperity remnants on my own property, it is symbolic of burying it, like cementing it, or putting it down into the ground for that person. Like it is like melding it with them. It's rooting it to them. And when I bury it just like I'm planting something. I dig a hole. I'll put something in there to fertilize it, some organic material, some dried leaves or something. I'll put the remnants in. I carefully cover it up. I water it just like I am planting a bulb, or I'm planting seeds, or I'm planting a new plant in my garden, so that that prosperity will flourish. So the idea is, when you think about the type of working you're doing and you think, is this something I want to stay with me? Is it something I want to go away from me? And then it becomes kind of a logical process. Then you can kind of intuitively and logically figure out what you should be doing with the remnants from each type of work. So offerings for love workings are also one that varies for me. That is another one that I would bury and bury with other significant, objects, maybe put flowers over it. But I would bury it with the idea that you want that love to bloom. So you're planting it so that it will grow. Sometimes I'll even put some seeds over where I plant or where I bury working remnants. And I often take the remnants to a specific grave of a husband and wife in the cemetery that I live next to, that I frequent very often. I do a lot of work there, and it's a very special couple. And they passed away together, and they have one headstone, both their names on it. It's very small. It's about that big. It's very plain, just says their names, that they passed away together. I don't know how. But I really enjoy their spirits, and so I take my remnants for love workings over there, and I will place them by the graves and bury them a little bit and put some seeds over the top, some flower seeds, so that that love can bloom. And at the same time, I'm honoring those spirits that are there and honoring their relationship and the love they had for each other. So that's another way you can add facets to it. Some people also go to the length of, say if you had a working you were doing for a court case, or some type of something to do with some legal documents or something like that, immigration, divorce, custody, anything like that. I have a grave of a judge, and I would take the remnants over to that grave, and I would leave those there and ask that the spirits be just and fair in that situation, and that the desired outcome be achieved, and that victory be achieved on behalf of my client. So you can do the same thing with a healing working. If you had the grave of a doctor, you could go drop those remnants off there, and so on and so forth. You could also do the legal works. If there was a grave of a lawyer, that requires a little bit of work. If you go to your city hall, you can kind of dig around and find that information out. It took me a long time to kind of scope out who was who. It does take some commitment and some time. If that is a way that you're interested in getting rid of your working leftovers, is by depositing them in cemeteries. You can also, a great all-purpose way is just disposing of them at the cemetery gates for Elegua or Oya. You can drop them off there and just ask for the spirit's blessing, that they bless and protect your work. So yeah, once you start thinking about it, it seems pretty obvious how to dispose of things. People are usually unsure what to do in the wintertime, so that was the main thing that I wanted to go over. And so I hope that helps a little bit with where and how to dispose of remnants. And I hope that answered people's questions. If not, you're free to leave me some comments below this if you have more questions. And I would love to hear them. I love to hear the questions and comments. And I really appreciate you guys watching. You can contact me through my shop. It's www.shop.conjuredcardia.com. And you can also find me on Facebook at Conjured Cardia. I hope you all have a blessed day, and thank you for watching.